It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Carlos Rodríguez, RDH, who leverages his experience as a professional comedian to create an engaging, educational, and entertaining CE experience. His events are both informative and hilarious. Carlos grew up in New Jersey and currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He has been married for over 25 years and to his wife and has two wonderful children. Carlos has always loved and had a passion for comedy, especially stand-up. When he's not busy cracking jokes, his hobbies include photography, fishing, and camping. He served honorably in the U.S. Navy as a dental tech for 3 years and transitioned to civilian life in 1990. He has been a dental hygienist for 23 years and has a passion for making his patients smile. Carlos has performed in clubs and colleges and for fundraising and corporate events all over the East Coast. He also has a fun and lighthearted podcast with Sandy Lee, who is also a dental hygienist. It's the perfect way to unwind on the drive home after a long day at the office, never heavy or boring, and is occasionally somewhat educational. Check out the Off Your Flosser podcast on iTunes, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and listen. Carlos, I had the honor of seeing you when you were in Phoenix just a few weeks ago, wasn't it, or last month?
Yes, sir.
And oh my God, I am a huge fan of stand-up, and you crushed it. We had a blast. I brought my office. We loved it. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Good. Again, thanks so much for coming out. That meant a lot. Really appreciate it.
Are you the only dental hygienist who's a comedian in the United States?
I tell people I am. I don't know if there are others or I'm sure there's funny people, but I started off trying to do wanting to learn stand up so I can make funny CE courses like what you saw, and I just went head over heels into stand up, and I wasn't even thinking about dental for a few years, and just having too much fun doing just stand up. It's I don't know. I'd almost do it for free if I could. If I could afford to, I would do it for free. It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
It's the most brutal form because I mean, we could spend the whole lecture talking about how it applies to treatment plan presentation,
yes, sir.
Everything. Like when you're, when you look at so many dental lectures, they use the PowerPoint as a crutch, and they're boring, and they lose half the audience at the first break or at lunch or whatever. But when you do stand up, there's no props. There's just you, a microphone, and they decide whether or not they're going to like you, trust you, and think you're funny in 1 minute.
Yep. 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, 30 seconds. I mean, talk about fast and furious. And
yes, sir.
And I learned that in my when I started lecturing in 1990. So I'm coming up on 30 years of lecturing. And in the first few years, about 2 or 3 times my luggage didn't make it. It got lost. And that was back when we had like 6 or 7 carousels. And I'm wearing, sweats that I traveled in. I don't have my suit. I don't have my slides. And the show must go on. And I was just a nervous wreck before it started. And then at the end of the seminar, I always said, that was the best damn seminar I ever gave. And that's when I realized that stand-up, like when you walk into the patient room, I mean, that first 30 seconds, engaging eye contact, shaking their hand, it's everything. Everyone would be much better at treatment plan presentation if they went to their local comedy club or their improv club or anything like that.
I'm a firm believer. I couldn't agree more. And not just because that's what I do, but you look at me. You met me. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm not the friendliest looking guy in the world,
I thought you were the bouncer when I walked in.
Yeah. People think I'm security all the time. No, I'm a hygienist, and no one believes me, Anyway, but I have to be. I've used humor my whole career just to connect with people, or it's not going to work. I have to come across as over friendly, and luckily for them, I like joking around a little bit. I have so much fun at work; it's ridiculous. I get away with murder.
So why do people always say that public speaking is the greatest fear? I mean, I've never been at a funeral and heard someone say, well, at least they're not public speaking. It's a good thing they're dead. Why do you think public speaking is so feared?
I don't know why other people. I think it's one of those things where you're afraid to fail. You're afraid to make a mistake or to not look as smart as you are. I remember when I started doing stand-up, I had a mini panic attack every time for 6 months. And I'd have to talk myself into it. And everybody's funny with their buddies, but going up in front of a bunch of strangers that you don't know and just talking to them and trying to get laughs, that takes a special kind of crazy.
Well, I've always thought that you could tell who was, practice management consultants will tell you that when they walk into an office, they can tell in 60 seconds if they're crushing it or not. I mean, if you walk in there and it's a library and nobody's having fun, it's high staff turnover, patients don't come back, they're always doing marketing until they're 65 years old. And then when you walk into an office and everybody, you can just feel it. I mean, they're fun, they enjoy work, they're having fun. And dentists aren't the most relaxed people. I mean, they seem to be a little more uptight librarian than stand-up comedy.
A little, they're a little wound tight. Yeah, I would agree.
Would you say a little, or do you think they're a lot wound tight?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about. I've known guys that were that probably need to be medicated at work, and then I know other guys that are real kind of laid back. But most of them are somewhere in the middle. But it's a stressful job, Even on the best day, most people don't like coming to see you. Am I right?
Yeah, well, I mean, seeing you for a cleaning, a lot of people want a cleaning, whiter, brighter teeth. Don't you think that you get a little better patients than the dentist who's coming in with a toothache?
Yeah, most definitely. But there's still people like the first time to the office and they come in and I come for them. And they're like, I got insurance. Why do I have to see this guy,
Yeah. Yeah, I've always thought, if like in Phoenix and ASU is in Tempe, and they have a some art house or whatever, but they have a 6-week night school in stand-up comedy, which I went through. They have one in improv. A lot of the receptionists said to me that these young dentists, if Friday and Saturday night, if they would just go be a bartender and just learn how to talk to drunk people, that'd be a little easier. If they could just learn how to talk, it would solve so many of their problems.
Do they not teach like communication and stuff in dental school? No, just the skills, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and I love stand up because I've done stand up comedy. I've done every comedy place in Arizona several times, and my gosh, it's such a performance to walk out there with only a microphone. And in 30 seconds, they're going to boo you off the stage. I mean, and I can't tell you how many times I walked on the stage and the guy walking off just lost it, started crying, freaking out. You said you had panic attacks before you walked in. I saw it all the time. They'd be in the back room and they'd be writing the jokes on their hand or their water bottle. And it's like, no, that's exactly what's perfect about this art. Just go out there and just crush it and don't be technical. You were amazing.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, and you just it's just about relating to the crowd. You just look at them and you relate and you work the crowd. I think you made eye contact with everybody in that room twice in your hour gig. I mean, it was.
I tried. Yeah.
No, you didn't try. You crushed it.
Thanks,
I brought my office.
Wow.
And then I was also thinking that, every time you go lecture at a dental meeting, they always show you the Excel spread chart about how dental meeting attendance has been drifting down and down decade after decade. And then they get mad at me because Dentaltown has online CE. So we have 400 courses. They've been viewed 1 million times. And I say, well, maybe your meeting should lighten up. Maybe it should have some more fun. What's the number one complaint at every dental meeting? There is nothing for the staff. And there you are making it fun for the whole staff, all the receptionists, everybody felt engaged. I mean, I just think you crushed it.
Oh, thank you so much, man. It was my absolute pleasure, and I had a fantastic time. After I went back to Phoenix and I did Mark Costas's Dental Success Seminar Institute, their annual thing, and that was maybe 3 weeks ago, and 600 dentists, and I was the special guest, the special speaker. No one knew that it was stand up, and it was just fun to watch them going, okay, well, all right, what's this guy going to talk about? And then it was like, hey, everybody, just let your hair down. Let's laugh a little bit. Let's have some good, some good times. So,
yeah,
I think there's not enough of that in dentistry. We need to laugh a little bit more and just stop being so serious all the time. There's a time and a place, but most things you can joke around with. I think so.
So what was it like being a man in a traditionally? I mean, when I was in dental school, everyone in the hygiene school was a woman. How
Right.
rare was it when you started 25 years ago versus today?
Well, I was in the Navy, and it was all guys, and there were very few females. You see what I'm saying? So the receptionist was a guy, the dentist, the assistants, the hygienist, the lab guys. Everybody was male. And then I get out and I go to hygiene school, and I'm like, we're all the ex-Navy guys. And I was the only guy in the class. There were no guys in the class before me and none in the class after me. So everybody knew who I was, but I even though I didn't know them, they were like, well, who's the guy, And I used to. This isn't my proudest moment, but I used to smoke cigarettes back then, and here I am with a denim jacket and work boots, on our non-clinic days, coming in from having a cigarette break, and they're like, "What's this?" And they're like, "Oh, he's a student," looking like maintenance. It was ridiculous, man. But I was a pretty good student too. So
what is the dentist hygienist relationship look like from your side of the coin? What I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of dentists listening to this, a lot of hygienists. How could they work better as a team together?
Oh, well, that's exactly the word I would use. A team. It needs to be more of a team. The hygienists are in there, hands on. They're looking in the mouth for 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is, and I can give you a good rundown on check number 30. The distal margin looks and just break it down for them. Or else at that point, it just becomes mechanical. If all you do is just clean teeth, it's kind of boring, I think.
So
what do you think?
So talk about your Off Your Flosser podcast. You've put up 26 shows. You started November last year with your first one. Tell us your journey about that and how you came to the Off Your Flosser podcast.
I started trying to do my own podcast, which was on a video format, and you can still find the 12 episodes that I did on YouTube, and that's What the Floss. That's my channel, What the Floss with Carlos Rodríguez, and it's in a format where it's just me and the camera, and it was just so hard to do because it took a lot of work, and I would edit it a little bit, but the episodes are absolutely ridiculous, and they make me laugh. And I've gotten people come up to me at different conferences and be like, I think you're hilarious. Why aren't you on television? And I'm like, well, that's a very good question. And I don't think that, that's that accurate, but it just makes me laugh. And I just want other people to laugh. And I just kind of abandoned it because it was just a little bit too hard to do just by myself. And Elijah Desmond recommended that I team up with somebody. He goes, you got to start back up. You got to start back up. And he introduced me and Sandy, and she's a little wacky, and we have a fun time. And it's the dental-ish. It's very laid back, and we talk about just the dumbest things. But there's enough podcasts talking about the oral systemic link and periodontal disease and oral cancer and all these heavy subjects. And we were talking about zombies and unicorns the other day. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But it's like you're hanging out with some friends. So if you get a chance, Off Your Flosser podcast. Yeah.
Well, when I started, so basically you're doing just a sound only podcast now. You're just
right
on iTunes.
Yes, sir.
Because the video is too complex.
Well, it was too complex for me by myself, but now it's even more complex, I would imagine, because there's two of us. You know, and we do an hour show every week. Drops on Friday around noonish, and
now is she a hygienist or a dental assistant?
She's a hygienist also.
So is she at Clear Choice? Is it Sandra Lee Lake? Or what's is her name Sandra Lee or Sandra Lee Lake?
Sandy Lee on Facebook.
Sandy Lee RDH?
Just Sandy Lee. SANDYLEE.
All right. Huh. So what do you think are the is your audience, you think it's more hygienist, more receptionist, dry hands, wet hands, is it dentist? Who do you think's listening to this?
You know, I think it's, you know, she's got a pretty big following on Facebook. She's got a group called Lighthearted RDH, and it's just what it sounds like, and that's kind of like the group that I want to be associated with. I want to keep it lighthearted and fun. There aren't a lot of guys, I don't think, in that group. I'm one of the few, and yeah, it's just, you know, we just try to have fun, man. You know.
Right on. So what are you on the Lighthearted RDH? That's a Facebook group. And then
yes,
the Tele2 hygienist. So where does she live? I mean, do you guys both live in Atlanta?
No, she's in St. Louis, and I'm in Atlanta.
So how do you you do it? You do it over, you guys call each other over Skype or?
Yeah, we Skype. We do it on. It's interesting. I made her get a microphone, so we record our audio on separate tracks, and we FaceTime with you know, headphones and microphones, so we can hear and see each other. And then our audio gets recorded onto a separate track. She sends me the file, and I blend it together in software. So it sounds like we're in the same room.
So you do all that technically yourself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It takes me hours, man.
Yeah.
So eventually I'd like to be able to afford to have somebody do that for us. But, you know, I have more control that way, and we make it as fun as possible. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but the sound quality is exceptional.
Yes, I've definitely heard it. Yeah.
The content is ridiculous, but the sound quality.
Well, you know, that was the what we did at Dentaltown. These things were so hard that actually Dentaltown actually started its own podcast here, because people were saying they could only do sound file because video makes it so complex. So we actually built our own studio that other people are using, where they just Skype in the video sound, and then we just package it for them, then upload it to iTunes and YouTube and all those places.
Really?
And it's an advantage for us because people put their podcasts for free on iTunes, but you can also put them for free on Dentaltown and Hygienetown. Anybody can do it. You can just upload your podcast, and it's great marketing.
Okay.
Because a lot of people get in their car in the morning, they open their 65,000 dentists have the Dentaltown app. So they open up the podcast section and they see what they're in the mood for. And if you look at what they're listening to, they bounce all around. No one wants to listen to Joe Rogan 7 days a week. You know, I mean, they want to try all these different podcasts.
Right.
And go ahead.
How do I get in on it? How do I get in on that?
Well, if you go to Dentaltown, under help, it has instructions, and then it says
okay,
and then it says how to upload your podcast. And everyone who's done it said their iTunes exploded. Their so they might have found it on the Dentaltown app and then subscribed to it on iTunes.
I will send you my RSS feed. I'll handle that.
So
thank you.
So do you think? I mean, you've been doing this 25 years, and you work for a big organization that has about 13 offices. So you've worked with a lot of dentists. Do you think?
Yes, sir.
Do you think attitude correlates with their success on how they communicate with dentists, or what advice would you give dentists? I mean, how many different dentists have come into your operatory and done a hygiene check?
Oh man, over 20 years. Honestly, I'd say maybe 40, 45.
So
different guys.
So which
and
ones
ladies.
were more successful than the others? What did they do that was more successful than the ones that did it were least successful?
I think it's a combination of things. I think you have to have some form of personality, a little personality, mixed with a little humility. You know what I'm saying? And a little humor never hurts. A little, being able to laugh at something, it never hurts. Just be a nice person. This is how I look at it. They come to us, and this is a dental office. The dentists have advanced degrees. The patients know this is Dr. Jones, for instance. But if all you coming at them with is high, $10 scientific words, and you're over talking the patient, now if the guy's an engineer, you might want to level up and just hit him with the technical jargon. If it's someone who's maybe not as savvy, you sort of match their energy, you match their language capabilities. I don't want to hear your vocabulary. I want to know that you're a decent person and that you're going to take care of me and not do a bad job. I don't know.
Yeah, but let's dissect this for me, because we know comedy. We know comedy well because we've both done it for a quarter of a century. You were perfect. I think the best comedians, they always play on their weak spots. When you make a joke about the hygienist, the patient, the wife, the spouse, whatever, at least half the people just think you're a jerk. You walk out there and did it correctly, where it's all self-deprecating humor. Those comedians look in the mirror and they say, okay, what are all my flaws? And then they work that, because it's so easy for someone to laugh at you, but it's impossible for half of the humans to laugh at themselves. So when the dentist walks in there and makes fun of the hygienist or the patient or the receptionist or anything else, they fail. They fail miserably. You need to make fun of yourself. I mean, I'm short, fat, and bald, and I love it because it gives me so much material. Now I'm old. My opening line at the deals is, I love being a grandpa, not just because of diabetes and erectile dysfunction, but because I have 5 grandchildren. But if you pointed to the old man at the front desk and said, I bet you have erectile dysfunction, half the people would say, God, that was just really, really rude.
Yeah, that was harsh.
And then rule number 2, it doesn't have to be true when you're making fun of yourself. I mean, it just
not at all.
It just shows that you have confidence because you're making fun of yourself and you just don't make fun of other people. Another problem I see in my area for 32 years, since 87, is, when patients are coming in from across the street, and the guy across the street is your alcoholic drinking buddy that you love, but it's you can just sum it up. Politics, religion, sex, and violence. People don't want to hear your thoughts on Trump. No. They don't want to hear your thoughts on Happy Easter. They just don't. They hear it's too much for them.
I'll add sports to that list too.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
I live not too far from University of Georgia, and if you're a Florida State fan or if you're a Michigan fan or Ohio State, people get kind of militant about football. I don't know if you...
And rightfully so.
I don't know if that's just...
I'm in Arizona, Carl.
Just here in the South. But it's just... And I'm kind of laid back. I don't care one way or another. I had a lady try to engage me the other day into a Trump conversation. And I had to say, hey, you know what? Just to be honest, I don't even follow politics. So can we just change the subject, Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to try to get you into a thing. And I'm like, that's exactly what you were doing, And I don't have time for that. I'm not getting into a political debate. We're not doing that, man. She was trying.
Yeah, I always said politics, religion, sex, and violence. I never thought of sports, but that's really interesting how you're an exceptional comedian and you came up with sports. That is interesting. Especially you're in Atlanta. I mean, that Super Bowl, had to be the most stressful thing you guys ever went. At halftime, man. I would have bet my house and car that you already won the Super Bowl. And then the Patriots came back and took it.
Unbelievable.
I'm so glad I don't have that gambling gene. I mean, I hate casinos, but I would have bet my house, car, and 401k that after the halftime that you would have won.
They should have. I heard, and I don't know how true this is, that they started celebrating at halftime.
Yeah.
They had to have.
Yeah.
Just how do you come? It was a different team on the second half. I mean, it was painful to watch. I told my son, I go, this is almost boring. He goes, don't say that. And then the tide started turning. He goes, this is your fault. You try to blame me. I almost got into a fight at the house.
And these dentists, they don't realize it, but Facebook has 2 billion users, and I forgot the stats, but I think it's like half of America logs onto it every day. And these guys are sitting there, and patients and employers, I know dentists don't care about employers because they work for themselves, but patients Google you. And then there's your Facebook page. And you are, and you're either pro, global warming, Trump, Hillary, socialized medicine, flat Earth. You just, I mean, it's like they don't realize they have a mile-long track record that people are looking at saying, well, I'm not going to that guy. He's a jerk.
Yeah.
I can't believe
it's a whack job.
And it's like, now on Facebook, can you set up an anonymous account? I mean, could I set up a Facebook page where I'm just like Smiley Tooth or Grandpa Howie?
I think you can totally do that. But to answer what you were just talking about, my Facebook, you don't know what my children look like. You don't have any idea what my wife looks like. It's just me. Hey, I'll be at the Improv. I'll be at the Punchline. I'm going to Phoenix. I'm going here. I'm going there. There's no political. I'm in, you don't know who I pray to, if I pray, what political affiliation I have. It's just down the middle. Just for that very reason that people research you, and I don't need any crap. Life sucks enough. Last thing I want to do is get into an argument with somebody over something dumb.
So I think most comedian experts would say self-deprecating is the best humor. Do you agree with that, or do any others come to mind? Like, I wouldn't think in sports.
I like observational stuff. Right. Sometimes you ever notice when, like, why are there Braille keys on the drive-through ATM? If you're blind, you probably shouldn't be driving. That's all I'm saying. It's just silly stuff like that, and it doesn't offend anybody. I'd rather be boring than offensive. What do you think?
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, like,
I don't want to offend anybody.
I mean, like my two oldest sisters are Catholic nuns. I mean, so if you said one right to life deal, you just lost them for eternity. And it's like, it's kind of like Ruth Bader Ginsburg or RBG. She said something that just about knocked me off my seat. She said, the reason you don't get angry or take anything personal or whatever is because it will lower your chance to persuade them. And you're not going to persuade someone to get optimum oral health dentistry done if you offended them. You're not going to. And the other thing is, being 56, people, I don't see anybody change their mind in politics, sports, religion, sex, and violence. I mean, you could send my two oldest sisters to a 40-day convention. And what do you think the odds are you could convert him to just being a Lutheran, which I still don't know what the difference between Catholics and Lutherans are. I mean, you'd have to be a lawyer to figure it out, but let alone change him to like Islam or Judaism or Hinduism. I mean, you're not going to change anyone's mind.
No.
So talk about something where you have a chance to persuade them.
That's all I'm saying.
To brush and floss every morning and every night.
Let's start there. We'll worry about Buddha, next month, Let's just floss on a daily basis,
Now, Buddha, he's got to be the best. I mean, he's short, he's bald, he's got a big belly. You and I have to be Buddhist.
Yeah, if I have to, I kind of look like him,
Oh, my God. So in stand-up, you said 30 seconds. I mean, 30 seconds, they're going to decide if they're going to give you a break and like it.
I've seen people come out. I go a lot. I work at the club, so I can go whenever I want, and I observe people that I don't know, and I'm like, what's this guy about, And I find that some people come out and you're like, I don't like this guy's face. There's something about him I don't like. You know what I mean? And a lot of times maybe it's just instinct, but I don't like their act either. And there's other people that come out and they're just super friendly and they smile and they laugh at themselves. And it connects. It's the connection, for lack of a better word. It's the connection with the audience where you feel that we're talking with you, not at you.
I saw one of the most interesting studies in the world, and it was talking about beauty. And it's very hard to set up. So they set it up just in Scandinavia. They set it up just at universities. They did only freshmen. And they would show, they were doing research. And the only thing they could find totally statistically significant was attitude. They would tell you something sad or think of something sad, and they'd take your picture. And then they'd say, okay, now tell me about the happiest day of your life. And you would, they'd take another picture, and then they would center those around. And the person who was feeling happy would score 2 or 3 points higher on a 1 to 10. And they've always said that, if you want to be the most beautiful person in the world engaging, you got to be feeling it. You got if you're feeling it, they're feeling it. And I always thought the biggest bombs are when you're going in there. I'll never forget the 2 worst lectures of my life. My dad died Wednesday, and I had to lecture Thursday and Friday. Both crowds were huge. They were planned 6 months in advance. And I told my mom, I said, it's disrespectful to my dad, and I just got to cancel. She goes, no, the funeral's not for 3 days. Your dad would absolutely want you to go give these things. You go give these things. And I couldn't even mention it to the crowd because I would just burst out bawling if I did.
Sure.
And you, if you're, if you walk out there, you got to be feeling happy and funny and engaging, because if you walk out there and you're struggling with something internally, they all pick up on it instantly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're right. But that's what separates the professionals from the yahoos. All hell could be breaking loose, but it's showtime. You got to get up there and do your thing, do your act, I think so.
Yeah.
I can have all kinds of stuff going on. I did a show. I was on my way to do a show, and similar situation. My dad calls me, and he lost my brother's phone number. He's like, I need his number. I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, his wife is in the hospital and she's not doing well. And this is my younger brother's, my dad's second marriage, and my younger brother with her and him. And so I gave him the number. I go, I'll call you back. I had to go do a show for 2 hours and host it and introduce a bunch of comics. And as I'm leaving, my mother calls me and says that, she was gone. But if I thought about that, I wouldn't have been able to do the show. Yeah, I mean, there was nothing I can do. I'm 6 states away. There's nothing I can do. I just had to just put it out of my mind, do the show, and then deal with the aftermath, later. So, but it's tough. Life is tough.
But it's the same thing with comedians. The only comedian I really don't like is anyone who uses props, because I just think, I know I'm a purist, but it just distorts the art. I don't want to see your hand puppet. I don't want to see you, Carrot Top, open up a box and pull out a bunch of stuff. Because why don't you just make a film? I mean, why don't you just bring an animator out there? Why don't you just so I like the pure art. I like the deal. And dentists, when they go out to lecture, they're standing behind a podium. They're not even looking at you. They're looking back at their slides, and they're going through their slides. And then you look at the same dentist in his operatory, and he's trying to explain something. He's got to pull out a model and then pull up a screen. I mean, if you can't look someone in the eyes, convey energy, and tell them their tooth's broken, it's going to need a crown over, a little cap over the top. It's no big deal. I mean, if you can't do that without 14 different crutches and PowerPoints and software, you don't even get it. I mean, you're talking to another human. Why do you need a PowerPoint presentation?
Some people aren't visual, are they need a picture just to see what it is that you're looking at. I think there is a little bit of there's a value to having I don't know about a whole 90-minute video on it, but I'll draw somebody a simple picture. What's a crown? You take the tooth out and then put no. Let me draw you a picture. It just goes over the top, and then I don't even do crowns. So why am I drawing them? But I think whatever it takes. If they don't understand, then you're not explaining it correctly. That's the simple thing. So if you tell them they don't get it, then draw a picture, then figure out an easier way. I have all kinds of little analogies, What and it's funny because some of my doctors will pick up using some of the verbiage that I use. Like I had a guy come in. This happens once or twice a week. Has 6 or 7 cavities and needs a crown and maybe a root canal or an extraction or something. And they're like, man, that's a lot of stuff. Where do we start? I go, well, listen, you didn't break it overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. Let's start with the worst things first, and then we'll just slowly. If it takes a year, it takes a year. If we can get it done in 6 months, we'll do it in 6 months. So, and they go, oh, okay. Because if you think I got to have all this stuff done in the next 2 weeks, it's overwhelming. No one wants to hear that. Usually like, hey, pump your brakes. You didn't break it in 2 days. We're not going to fix it in 2 days. We got it. We'll start with the worst ones first. I don't know. It's common sense to me, I guess. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
So in your 25 years of doing this, how would you break up the patients? I mean, do you think that half are afraid of the pain and half are afraid of the cost, or some love it? Like, how would you break up the market from your view at 25 years?
I think most people have a concern about the financial part, and I have people trying to talk me out of, getting a bridge or whether they need scaling and root planing. That's a big one, I don't know. I don't get a lot of objections. I don't know if it's. I just keep coming at them from different angles till they finally get what, if they have any questions, what I'm trying to say, or I don't know. I try to, like you said, just connect and just be honest with people.
Yeah,
I know I didn't say anything right there. That was a useless answer.
You're in Atlanta. Are you in Atlanta?
Yes, sir.
And that's a big, prosperous, successful city, and yet you still say that most people are concerned about the cost of dentistry.
Yeah.
And
the basic stuff. Like I can't tell you how many times people go, well, we gotta get a full set, a complete set of X-rays. Well, I only want what the insurance is going to cover. And I'm like, well, that may not be it. Well, how much is this going to cost? All the time, all those times, I get those objections all the time.
When I ask dentists, and by the way, on Dentaltown, if you start a thread, you can start it as a poll. And so I hear people all the time saying, 25% of dentists do this or that, and I'll say, wow, that is really fascinating. Can I see the poll on that? And it's always a gut feeling. And I always say, well, guts are filled with fecal matter. That's only your opinion. But on Dentaltown, it's 20 years old. And so I've got 20 years in polling data. In fact, you can just click the polls and just read all the polls. And even though most of the polling's only a few hundred votes in a population of only 150,000 general dentists in America practicing 32 hours a week or more, 100, 200, 300 votes is more than significant. I mean, God, when they're trying to tell you who's going to be the next president of the United States, CNN will only poll maybe 1,200 people out of a country with 325 million. So they're very valid. But when I ask them, what really stresses you out the most, they always say the staff or the patients, which means a human interaction. What advice could you give these introvert scientists, librarian, engineer, physicist, dentist, to be less stressed with their team and their patients at a human level?
I think fundamentally, eye contact paying attention. You ever talk to somebody and they're glancing off somewhere else or got their face in a phone or something? You're like, I'm talking to you. I think it's just one of those, just like that. That's, we got to have that eye contact. And in tone, I don't know. I think it's multiple ways to do it, and everybody's a little bit different. Some people, aren't comfortable, but I think if you're in a healthcare field like we are, you got to be comfortable talking to people.
Yeah, there was
eye contact.
Eye contact. I read a very neat paper on seduction, and when another human looks at you, and you break eye contact and look away, they immediately think you're weak or submissive or passive. And women, in particularly, they want someone who can really promote their children, support their children. So they're not looking for someone who looks away. But they said that when you just maintain eye contact, that you can measure their pupils dilate, there's more blood flow in the vermilion border. Eye contact is everything. And shaking their hand or... and that's why I don't like the models and the videos and all that, because then they're not making eye contact. I mean, all those things are fine if they're not a crutch, if you're not leaning on them
Understood.
or hoping that they're going to close the deal. But it's all about another thing with monkeys, since we're a monkey without a tail, is when you look down at them, they feel threatened. So you sit in your chair, and if they're in the dental chair, raise them up so they're looking down at you.
Yes, sir.
And then they feel
Exactly.
confident and superior, so you're underneath looking up. In fact, dentistry is the craziest professions, because the most vulnerable monkeys and chimpanzees and humans is laying on their back with their throat exposed, because that's how they all die. A carnivore is going to throat wrap you, is going to give you the rear naked chokehold, and that's how you die. So for 2 million years, we're sitting up in trees watching our Aunt Carl, laying on the ground while a hyena's choking them out. And then we ask all of our patients to lay on their back, lift their chin up, expose their throat.
Right.
And they're like,
That's hilarious.
what was your next best idea? I mean,
when I, again, because of my size, I'm a lot bigger. I'm a big guy. I'll sit somebody in the chair and I'll raise, like you said, raise them. And the body posture is I kind of sit back. If you're sitting all in somebody's face, it might be a little too intense. Lay back. Look, my hands are right here. Let's talk. And I go, well, let's talk. Talk to me about your teeth. Well, there's nothing to say. And then I try to throw a little tester joke in there, and then once I tell them that I do stand up, then they're like, that kind of gives me the permission to mess with them a little bit more. Now they're kind of expecting it, But if you say something and they're not responding, and they just give you a sideways glance, just do your job and keep it moving. This person's not in the mood, you know what I mean? But I think it's all about connection. It's I don't know. It's something you have to practice, I think, but you really need to, because what are we if we're not relationships, man?
Oh yeah, I mean,
seriously.
Humans, they're you live by the sword, die by the sword. I mean, they're the greatest thing about being alive, and they're the worst thing about being alive. I mean, I would have hated to have been born on Earth and been the only Homo sapien. I mean, that would have been a very confusing existence. So the greatest things in your life are your family and friends, but then other people, they're, all these terrorists and all these toxic things and all these things like that going on. But I've also noticed something, if you dentists are listening, that treatment plan, a lot of dentists are not going to pay attention until you materialize it into dollars and paying off their student loans. But if you have staff turnover, you're going to have patient turnover. If you want to keep your staff long-term, you'll keep your patients long-term. And if you can't,
Yes.
and with dentistry, if you can't convince, sell, educate to your hygienist and your assistant and the front desk of why this person needs this specific dental treatment, well, if they don't get it, the patients never get it. And then when your staff gets it, then when you leave the room, how often, if 100 people after the dentist does their exam, on 100 patients in a row, how many of them, when the dentist leaves the room, what is the top 3 most common things they say to you?
What did he say? You know,
Right.
You know, what? Yeah. What was that? What do I need? And then they'll nod and yeah, sure. And then I got to explain it to them. You know, and I think if you're right, if the team is not all on the same page, you're spinning your wheels. How much something is going to cost and what the sequence is going to be.
Yeah, and it's sad because the front office, the back, like your job is extremely predictable flow. I mean, you have a patient every hour. Do you schedule an hour for a cleaner? How much time do you get?
An hour.
An hour. So let's say you work 8 to 5. You have a patient every hour. The front desk is sitting up there. The phones might not ring for 20 minutes, and all of a sudden 6 incoming calls come in, and then all of a sudden you can check out 3 patients in a row, and all 3 may need nothing, and then the next 3 all want to review their account balance since 1912, and so they never know what's going on,
right.
And I think it's so sad when the dentist does the exam or whatever, they walk up there and then they start asking all the questions to the front. And when I had associates doing that in my team, I would just say, well, if you're busy, take him back there and go interrupt the let the doctor know that this patient just came up to me and said, well, what's the difference between a bridge and the partial? I mean, come on, doc, you were in here for a freaking half an hour and they asked me what's the difference between a bridge and a partial. So if you just keep, I always felt it was what do you call it, when you're enabling someone's behavior. If every time they come out and they have no idea what's going on, you should just start taking it back to the doctor and say, doctor, if you don't want to present treatment, let's not do it. But it's really hard to have your patients come out here and we have to do all the treatment plan presentation because nobody knows what the hell you're saying. So either let's give it up in the back and we'll because if they're in the room, we can finish our phone call, check out a patient, then go in there and present. But you want to do the presentation, and then they come out, and we have to do it over the counter, not knowing what the hell's going on our side.
Yeah, no. It's a communication chain. It has to, all the links have to be intact. Everybody's got to know what the other people are doing. It's communication, man. Communication, clear, concise communication. It's all about clarity. If you don't understand something, then I need to explain it so you understand it. I can't make it any simpler.
So what was your last episode 26? Just came out April 19th, so it's 3 days ago. It says you discuss dysfunctional family, criminal annex in Walmart, taxes, dog eating things they shouldn't, coffee, bad tattoos, Tiger Woods, Facebook live events, and honey badgers. So was there anything to do with hygiene and all of that?
Well, one of the tattoos is I can't even believe I'm telling you this. I have a tattoo. I had another website. It was called King of Comedy RDH.
Right.
And
you took that. You took that down, right?
Yes. We called it Dentistry's. I call myself Dentistry's King of Comedy, which is a little arrogant, but somebody's got to own the space.
Right.
You know? So my son's got a couple tattoos, and I wanted the artist who did his one and had a mom and dad tattoo to do my Dentistry's King of Comedy, and I wanted a tooth with a crown on it. So the guy draws it up. He made him look a little aggressive. I said, no, I want him friendly. Put a smile on him. He goes, so you want teeth on the tooth? I go, yeah. Well, it sounds stupid when you say it that way, but yeah, I want teeth on the tooth. And he draws the tattoo, and the tattoo looks like it's the most sketchy looking. He looks like a very suspicious, and it's a horrible tattoo. You want to see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Check this out, Doc. This is nonsense.
I love it. Oh my God!
Is that a crotch? He goes, no, man. That's your goatee. I gave him your goatee. I made him look like you. And he colored his eyes my color. No. It's too late now. I'm running around with a typo on my arm, you know?
Oh, my gosh. You got to post that On the neat thing about Dental Town is a board like that. It's all searchable. Where it's hard to on Facebook to go back on someone's post just 3 days ago. But we have a thread called Dental Tattoos, and it's pretty damn cool. It's 2 pages of dentists and hygienists and assistants showing them their tattoo. You got to post that on there. It is amazing. You would not believe how many dentists have a tattoo of a tooth on their toe or their finger or their. In fact, one of the best employees I ever. This true story. It was back in '87. I was interviewing for an assistant, and this assistant, she seemed kind of aloof, and she wasn't, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it, and I was going to end the interview and not hire her, and I went to shake her hand goodbye, and when she shook my hand, I saw a molar on the inside of her wrist, and I, like, grabbed her hand and turned around and looked at it, because I knew instantly, I said, anybody who works in dentistry who would commit to a tooth on their human body eats, lives, breathes, and dies dentistry. Oh my God. She was like the best assistant I ever had until her husband moved and they went off to California. But she would come in and she seemed, I don't know, she'd be tired or whatever and low energy. But the minute she walked in the room, it was like she went on stage. And when she walked into the operatory, her voice went up louder. She was doing a presentation, and she just owned dentistry. And I would hire anybody with a tooth tattooed on their human body because I know they're into dentistry. I mean, it's true. They're totally into dentistry. What other tattoos do you have? I mean, I have. As far as like, what are they related to?
Well, I got the microphone that's right next to it. It's a. It's got.
For stand-up.
Because that's how. Can you see it?
Yeah.
From stand-up.
Yeah.
And my wife liked the flowers, and she wanted some color in it, and she was paying for it. So she's like, get some flowers on it. And I have a heart with the kids' names in it, in case I forget who they are.
But think about that.
You know,
you have one for your kids, one for your stand-up, one for being a hygienist, and those are 3 things that you own and love. And the proof is in the pudding. You permanently tattooed it on your body. I mean, it's just that's
I never thought about it that way, but you're right.
That's next level stuff. What is your most favorite podcast? You've done 26 podcasts off your Flosser podcast on iTunes. What was your favorite one and why?
I can't remember the number, but there was one where I told the story of playing tag in the dark when we were in high school. We were about 15. And one of my buddies and his dad used to rebuild cars. And we take a car out of the garage, and nobody had a license, and we drive it to the park. And for some reason, we're playing tag. And this park had a little creek that was maybe 3 feet deep and maybe 6 feet across. And I could easily jump it during the daytime. I'm trying to get to one side of the park, and from one side to the other, and I jump, and I mistime it, and I land short, and I smash my shin against the rock border of this creek river thing, and I roll over into the grass, and I swore I broke my leg. It felt like I broke my leg. And we were all dressed up as ninjas. That's the funny part. And I remember holding my leg going, "Ninjas don't cry." Ninjas, because I wanted to cry. So all the guys come up, and we're all just laughing our asses off because I'm laying in the grass talking about ninjas don't cry. One of the guys that was there has 3 boys, and his boys know me as the guy who came up with ninjas don't cry. So you know how your son will fall off a bike, and you'll see him his lip will start to quiver. Ninjas don't cry. You're a ninja, right? You know what I mean? So he turned that silly experience into a life lesson for his children, which is absolutely ridiculous, and which is about the story of my life.
Well, you know,
I don't know.
I think I think of dental meetings, and you know, it's so funny because what did we just talk about? We just talked about in the beginning that I said don't talk about religion, politics, sex, violence. You added sports, which was very intuitive to me. And then you go to these major meetings like the ADA, and who do they always get to be their keynote speaker? some damn politician. I mean, over the years, it was Kemp, it was Bush, it's always some damn politician. I'm like, okay, you're the American
It's
Dental
polarizing.
Association. Don't you know that some people, gosh, like maybe half the country don't agree with that guy because he's a donkey instead of an elephant, or an elephant instead of a donkey, or whatever the hell. And then if you came on and was yourself, and I would say your humor was, I mean, it wasn't rated R. What would you say, PG-13? Or what would you call your humor if it was on Hollywood?
Well, I think that night it was a little bit more PG-13, you know.
Yeah.
But I even my worst stuff is not bad.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know. I can't tell you how many times I've done a seminar. I mean, I've done 1,000 of them, and so many times, well, Mrs. Wimpleton was very upset with your seminar, and she walked out. She said you said shit 3 times. Shit is rated G. I mean, we're not dropping the F-bomb. I didn't show nudity. There's no violence. No one. But it's crazy.
You didn't expose yourself.
Yeah, and look at R-rated movies. Like, you're a mammal, so you give birth to live young, and you feed them milk, and you show a breast, and it's immediately rated R, and half the country just wants to shut down the movie theater. But then if you show a family film like Rocky, or something where an M16 or Rambo kills like 100 people in the movie. Oh, that's a family movie. After church, let's take all the kids to the Rambo movie and watch them kill 100 other people. And then if someone whips out a mammary gland, they're like, oh my God, call the mayor, shut this place down. And I have the hardest time explaining to people that, okay, what you just heard was PG-13 max. Now, I would love to go back on there. I could make it rated R in a New York second, and I could make it rated XXX in half a second. But that's what I do when I do comedy stuff in Phoenix. Like when I do shows around here, I mean, it's like brutal, and they laugh. And then you go into a dental club and give them PG-13, and 20% of the people are like, oh my God, did he just say shit? Did he say poop? What did he just grab his crotch? I mean, oh my God, it's like, what is wrong with this profession? And then, like say, then their keynote speakers are politicians, and I don't care who you are, a libertarian, a Republican, a Green Party, a Democrat. You just wrote off half the country. And that's their best idea. And I'll tell you, you're in Atlanta. The Hinman meeting, I'll never forget when they asked me to speak at him, and they said, now when you come, you're going to wear a suit and tie, right? I mean, you have to wear a suit and tie. And I said, hell no. I wouldn't even consider it. And they're like, well, you can't have you speak if you're not going to wear a suit and tie. I said, well, then find some guy with a suit and tie. I mean, don't be calling me. I'm not gonna be something I'm not. But it is so hard to technically explain to a dentist the difference between PG-13, R, and X. And there's no one ever been at a dental convention R or X, and you just do PG-13 and they just freak.
You know, I think that goes back to dentistry needing to just relax a little bit. Maybe not so much on the on the X or the R, but some things are just funny. Can we just be people for a minute? You know what I mean? I don't know if this is the time or the place, but Dr. Paul Homily, I'm coming out to his course in July, and I'm going to help him teach people how to add humor to their presentations to make them a little bit more interesting. So if that's of interest to anybody, you go to paulhomily.com and sign up for the July course. I believe it's 28th, 29th, the one in late July, whatever one that is. And the guy's a genius with the word in speaking, and he gets it. And the reason I think why we get along is because we can have a frank conversation and just be two regular guys. And I'm just excited to come be able to share this gift, if you will, and help people, try to make people a little bit funnier, Yeah,
I'm trying to find when his course is that you just mentioned. I am Paul Homily. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's the name of his course. Just because you're an expert doesn't make you interesting. June 6th and 7th in Gilbert, Arizona, which is right up the street from the dental school. You should tell Paul to do? Have him
What's
send
that?
the AT Still Dental School a deal and tell them that their dental students can come at the course for a full participation is $15.95. For audience only, it's $5.95. He should do something for the dental students for like $195 or $95 because those kids need it the most. But yeah, Paul is just a master. Just because you're an expert doesn't make you interesting. What a great guy! He was on the show. He was episode 743.
The one we're doing is just because you tell stories doesn't make them good, and that's the thing we're doing. And I can't believe I got my stupid face on here.
No, that's just amazing. Paul's all about community. Now, let me give you a background on Paul
July
because
26th and 27th. That's the one.
What is it? Oh, June.
July 26th and 27th. Just because you tell stories
doesn't make them good. July 26th, 27th, and they're all in Gilbert. I wonder where.
I'm gonna help make them gooder.
I wonder why they're all in Gilbert. I wonder what's going on in Gilbert.
I think he's got a nice little spot there where the classes are held. It's called the Falls.
Living here in Phoenix, but yeah. So Paul, when I was a baby and just got out of school, and I went to the Mission Institute in Pittsburgh with Carl Misch. It was a 7 3-day weekends at the University of Pitt. That's where I first learned about Paul. And I think he was from where was he from? I think he was from what was it?
Chicago, maybe?
South Carolina, Fort Mill, South Carolina. And this guy was he was the only guy at the whole Mission Institute that was selling the majority of all the big cases. And everybody thought South Carolina didn't have any money, and he was doing the most. And back then they were subperiosteals and ramus frames and things that, don't even exist anymore. And he was just doing them all day long. And he would always laugh at me. He'd always say, selling the whole full mouth rehab, that's the easy part. But technically going in there and doing it, that's why I'm down here with Carl, every other weekend trying to learn all the technical stuff. But he never, ever had a problem selling the full mouth rehab. It was just, but the technical part was actually doing it. I always thought.
He knows how to talk, man, and he can talk to anybody,
Yeah. And,
I've learned so much from him already. But, so I'm excited going on there because he doesn't let anybody shoehorn in on his lectures because he's so good at doing it himself. But, we hit it off, man. So I'm excited. Yeah.
So but what about inter-staff? Like you've been in there 25 years. You go into so many offices and there's something toxic going on, whether it's the assistant hates the hygienist or the front desk or the doctor's spouse or whatever. What are your insights on that?
You have the occasional bad apple, if you will. And there's some people that are just toxic. There's just some people that are just straight up, just not nice people, and they'll eventually shoot themselves in the foot. But I think for the whole of the organism, you got to cut off the bad part, and sometimes you got to let people go.
What I always thought was bizarre is that you meet someone at a meeting. And you can determine they're toxic in like 3 seconds. And it's like, okay, how do I know this person is completely toxic and you don't? And I just like they'll come up and they'll say, well, will you talk about this and this? And they'll look back at their doctor and they'll roll their eyes in discontent. And then I'm like, how long you work there? And she's like, I've been there 3 years. I'm like, wow, 3 years, you're completely toxic. You just rolled your eyes at your employer. I mean, do you think they know they're toxic and just don't know how to deal with it, or why do dentists keep toxic people?
I think some people don't know they're toxic and they need to be, talked to. A little pep talk, a little team meeting or something. And then there's other people that just like chaos. They're like the Joker. They like pissing people off. You know what I mean? And causing, disruption and disharmony just because they like doing it. That's fewer. And I don't know why they keep toxic people. I don't know. I'm at the age, I'll be 50 in August, and I don't have time for toxic people. If we're in a conversation 90 seconds and I'm stressing out, I'm done. Have a nice day. Not in the dental setting. I got to do what I got to do. But out in at a club or something, I can't do it. I'll walk away from people.
Have you ever wondered what percent of Americans? I mean, I know we don't live in other countries and would know, but what percent of Americans do you think are just toxic?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe 8%.
Okay, so you're saying 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you hire slow and you fire fast, and when you got someone toxic on the team, you were on the cruise with our friend, the dental cruise you were just on. You take your staff on a cruise, you take them to meetings, you do all these things, and then they're just toxic and backfiring on you. And the way, like, taking your staff on a cruise would be a return on investment is if they all stay with you 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, it's only a return on investment if you slow down staff turnover. And when you look at staff turnover, wages is usually mentioned fourth. And 1, 2, and 3, I don't like the people I work with. I don't like the leader. I don't like my manager. I don't feel good about what I'm doing. And then the dentist thinks he's going to overcome all this toxic crap by having like a bonus system. I mean, you know how many men think that their spouse is going to stay with them because they're successful? It's like your spouse would rather live under a bridge in a box and be happy than live in a McMansion with some toxic ass.
Yeah. I agree.
So how was that cruise?
The Smiles at Sea?
Yeah.
Smiles at Sea is amazing, man. Have you ever been?
I have not. He asked me to go on that, but the thing about lecturing is they book you years in advance, and so I couldn't do it. In fact, he was so funny. He said, well, just cancel. And I said, well, you just can't cancel some gig that you had. But how was the Smiles at Sea?
I've been on 3 or 4 of them, and they just get better and better every year. Better and better every year. He has 2 events. They're going back to Cuba in October. And unfortunately, this year I couldn't make it in March. And I got a gig in, where am I going? Minneapolis. So I can't go in October. I really want to go. I want to go to Havana. I want to go to Cuba. But, you have the couple different tracks on CE. You have team building, team bonding like no other, They have fun events. It's very social. They give away a ton of stuff. Scholarships for hygienists to get their bachelors. They give away instruments, tools, you name it, and plus excursions. And then when you're not taking classes, you're at the beach, on the pool deck, or on a horse somewhere.
I think Elijah Desmond, who RDH, another hygienist, I think he's an amazing guy. And dentists, what they realize that the same skill to keep your spouse is the same skill to keep your staff, is the same skill to keep your patients. And what dentists fail to focus on the most, they always want to talk about new patients and marketing, and should they have Facebook ads or Google AdWords or direct mails. It's like, dude, you live in a town of 5,000 and you've practiced there 25 years. So for 25 years in a town of 5,000, you still need new patients? And then I look around your office and no one's even worked here for 3 years. And I always thought that the worst personality you have, you need to move to a bigger city. Because you could be the worst dentist in Phoenix and in your lifetime, you couldn't piss everyone off. But the worst scenario is when you got a really bad humanist dentist in a small town, and everybody figures out that they're toxic. It's like if you're toxic, you need to be in downtown Atlanta, New York City, Miami.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the greatest companies, where were they born? Rural America, like Walmart. I loved Sam Walton's early stories where, his wife at the end of church, some lady'd walk up to him and say, "I just bought these shoes from your husband a week ago, and the heel already fell off, and he won't take them back." And then Helen had to go tell Sam, and he'd say, "Well, that's not my responsibility. I didn't make the damn shoe." And she'd say, "Sam, this town's got 5,000 people. That whole family's never going to go back ever. So we do this once a week for 5 years. We're out of business." So that forced Sam to he'd have to take it back, and then that made him mad. So then he'd push that up the value chain, and the next time the guy came and sold him 10 pairs of shoes, he'd say, "Hey, not this one. You're exchanging." So he pushed refunds up the value chain, which forced all these American companies to start going for quality. By the way, his book was made in America. He didn't even have imports. I mean, it was all made in America. He, it was just amazing. Wow. But I look at some of the most amazing dentists, and they're all rural. I mean, if you're just because your policy works in Manhattan or Miami doesn't mean it's going to work in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And when you get to small town, then I'm really interested in how this is working. Right. And so
now that personality comes into play. Now your people skills come into play. How you treat people come into play. You can be a jerk in a big city, just like you said, because you can't piss everybody off. But I don't know. I have I don't want to say small. I have a good sized following of patients. I call them my VIPs. And I had one lady come in. She's like, I tried to come see you. I had to reschedule because you're going out of town. I'm like, but didn't they have a replacement? She goes, yeah, but I don't want to see somebody else. I want to see you. They told me I had to wait 2 months to come back and see you. I go, well, listen, do this. Next time that happens, don't get upset. Just say, can you have Carlos call me? Tell him it's Mr. So-and-so. And leave a message, and I'll call you back. And I'll find you a spot, and I'll come in early, or I'll stay late one day, and we'll work it out. And I've said that to several hundred people, and maybe 20 people have taken me up on it. But knowing that you care, that you will work with them, makes all the difference in the world.
So I can't believe we went
simple.
We went over and over and over. His website is carlosrdh.com. carlosrdh.com. His podcast is Off Your Flosser Podcast. If you want to have a dental meeting, think outside the box. Don't bring in the mayor or the governor or some guy running for Congress. No religion, sex, politics, violence, or sports. Bring in Carlos. I've watched him in action. He had my whole staff laughing their heads off. Everyone loves the guy. I love you, Carlos. I think you're good for dentistry. And you got to post your tattoo on Dental Town. I think that's going to be talking about lighting these guys up. But he's Off Your Flosser Podcast. Carlos, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you, Dr. Farran. Have a good one.
It's Howard to you, buddy, always.